here's a question for you. Should parents who let their children get severely sunburnt be fined for neglect? Well, a lot of the UK is facing extreme heat this week, and doctors are warning parents to take extra care.
It's been reported that 3 children in Swansea had suffered such severe sunburn that they were actually admitted to a local plastic surgery unit in their nearby hospital.
Well, we're joined by child safeguarding expert Sarah Carlick, who says parents should get on-the-spot fines for failing to put sun cream on their kids. And mum of 2, Katrina Hodge, who says fining parents is ridiculous when they largely behave responsibility. And we have Dr. Hilary here too. So let's come to you, first of all, then, to tell us why you think this is ridiculous. Katrina, why do you think it's not neglectful?
Well, for me, punishment never educates. So I think it's about education. And as a responsible parent, I always make sure that my children have Factor 50 on, we're in the shade. But for me, children need vitamin D. It helps bones, it helps muscles. And personally, I suffered with postnatal depression, and leaving the house sometimes, I would get myself worked up, I'd have panic attacks. And if you told me that by just taking my children out to enjoy themselves, that potentially I would get fined, that would have made me completely spiral out of control, if I'm completely honest. So I think this is more about education and sun safety. And unfortunately, I appreciate the severe burning, and I'm not saying that's excusable, but unfortunately, sometimes people do burn. And no matter how vigilant we are, unfortunately, the SPF is too high and it happens. And as a parent, as a responsible parent, if for whatever reason, touch wood, my children have never burnt, but if for whatever reason they did, I would be punishing myself enough. So, and I worry about the ongoing issues with it, that if punishments are in place, would some parents that are irresponsible maybe not take their children to hospital for fear of being punished? So I think this is an education piece.
Well, I want to ask Sarah Carlick, who thinks that we should be fining mothers and fathers who let their kids burn, how you'd police it. I mean, you'd have to have quite a lot of compelling evidence of neglect, as it were, to actually impose a fine. Because, for example, you could say to a mother or a father, that child is burning, I see no evidence of suntan lotion, and the parent could say straight back, well, no, I put some on before we came out. You're just wrong. How would you police it? How would you prove that somebody had been neglectful?
I don't actually think I'm here to enforce it. I do think that fining and mandatory education, but I just want to put across, obviously you mentioned the terrible case of the children in Wales, and one severe blistering sunburn can double a child's chances of getting melanoma when they grow up into an adult. And under the law in this country, you know, child protection, safeguarding, physical abuse does include burning. So severe burning, I would like to see as part, you know, rather than burning, if a child had been, had hot water thrown over them and been scalded, it would be investigated as a safeguarding issue, whether that be a non-accidental or accidental injury. So I'd like to see it to be very specific around sunburn, because every time you're in the sun, you know...
How bad would the sunburn have to be? I mean, at what point would you intervene? I mean, lots of people go a little bit red when they're in the sun, particularly children. At what point would you say...
They do, and if you go...
Go on. Go on.
I think if you're... if you're admitted to A&E, I think any pinkness or any sunburn is actually damaging your skin. You know, the sun is a killer. Your skin is the biggest organ on your body. I do think if you do have to go out and you are in the midday sun, that you should, you know, have a sun hat, have SPF, have protective clothing. But I do feel very strongly when it's severe and when children are having to go to a GP or to A&E, that for me is an issue of, you know, physical harm. You're inciting harm on that child and you're damaging their chances of health development when they grow up.
Sorry to interrupt, it's difficult on these lines, isn't it? But as our previous speaker said, If a parent thinks they're going to get fined, they're going to get into trouble, they maybe even end up in magistrates' court because their child's sunburned, they're not going to take them to the doctor. They're not going to take them to any. So actually, you're making the problem worse. What do you think, Hilary? What's your take on it?
The questions come about because malignant melanoma, for example, has doubled since 1990. It accounts for 16,000 cases every year. More than 2,000 people die of malignant melanoma, the 5th commonest cancer of all in the UK. Now, the problem is, if you want to impose a fine, how do you prove that the parent's been negligent?
That's
the sunscreen could be out of date, the clothes and towels can wash
could have wiped it off.
Sunscreen off. What if the child is in the care of somebody else? And if you're going to fine people for allowing their children to become sunburnt, are you then going to fine parents for allowing children to become overweight or obese or not taking enough exercise?
Because, and where do we stop?
Where do you stop? Because obesity it increases the risk of cancers. So, you know, and you can't police. You wouldn't be able to police this easily at all. So I wouldn't be in favour of fine, but I would certainly not just educate the parents, but educate the children in school so
to make
children
sure they
know.
And I think, to be fair, a lot of schools do. Listen, you've been voting on our Twitter poll this morning. We asked, should parents who let their kids get burnt be fined? 52% said yes, they should be fined. 48% said no, they should not. So it's obviously kind of on the fence there. More people are seeing a benefit to it, which hopefully shows more people are taking the problem seriously. Thank you very much to all of you this morning. I think it's something we'll all be talking about if the weather stays nice, won't it? And thanks, Hilary, as well.
Thanks, Hilary.